Have you ever been inside a crime scene or followed a crime as it happens? And I don't mean on some Criminal Minds type of follow along. I mean, have you ever followed a crime as it happened in real time and wondered if you have trauma just by witnessing the brutal murder of a woman in real time? Well, that's what it was like to watch The Fire That Took Her. The Fire That Took Her is a documentary that follows the death of Judy Malinowski, who was set on fire by her boyfriend, Michael. Now, I have heard of deaths where women were set on fire by abusive ex-husbands or boyfriends, but this one was an interesting case. Why? Because she was able to testify at her own murder trial. So everyone, meet Judy Malinowski. Judy was a beautiful mother of 2 young girls who was brave and tough enough to stay alive long enough to testify against her abusive ex-boyfriend in her own murder trial. Now, before I continue talking about Judy's story, I just want to emphasize that this is a review of a documentary, and I have to point out that the director did an amazing job highlighting Judy's life and bravery, instead of making this about the man who did this to her. From the beginning of the documentary, we, the audience, are taken into the crime scene and we begin to experience it. The documentary opens up with a 911 call where a woman is disturbed, and she's yelling and calling for help. The dispatcher is trying to understand her but has a hard time. Now, us as the audience, you're listening, trying to make out the words of what she's saying. You're not truly knowing what is going on. And we also see the location of where it all happened. Now, suddenly you hear the voice of Judy saying her name in what appears to be her own voice when testifying. The documentary then pauses from the crime and it takes us back to the very beginning. So now we meet Judy's mom, and she's talking about becoming Judy's mother. And we see her growing up, and we see this young girl so full of life. We meet her family, who seem like they're just the nicest family. And we also meet Judy's daughters, and we get to know Judy through their eyes.
People can just say, like, I love you, not always mean it. But for my mom, like, I always knew that she, like, actually loved me.
And then boom, we are right back at the crime. We hear a woman in distress describing the scene, explaining to the police that a woman was set on fire by a man. The documentary takes you through a bit of a roller coaster and mystery, because if you don't know anything about this case like me, like I didn't know anything when I watched this documentary. Like, you're being introduced to Judy for who she was, her nice family, and you're hoping that this ends with a happy ending. But as the documentary continues to unfold, you can't see a happy ending because you see how gruesome the crime was, and you're just like, how could anyone do this? And after we hear the woman telling 911 about Judy being set on fire, we're now watching the detective on the crime walking through what appears to be like an evidence locker room. So we start to see the clothes that was on Judy's body. We start to see that it was melted off of her. We see the bra that was burned off of her, the lighter. Then we hear the detective explain how they got the footage of the crime. Now, luckily for everyone involved, the footage was a bit blurry, so it's hard to see what was going on, but the detective was able to explain it. So in the footage, you see the ex-boyfriend dump gas and then set her on fire, which was not the story the ex-boyfriend told the cops. So immediately we hear how horrible everything was, how badly injured she was. Everyone thought she was gonna die. Like, we're going through this roller coaster on this documentary, and we're meeting all these people that was around at the time, including the nurse that took care of her. And the nurse thought she was gonna die. Everyone did. No one expected her to survive past a day or two. So then we see the actual footage of the ex-boyfriend, Michael, give his excuse to the detective. And I'm so glad the detective saw right through his crap. Like, we're actually watching the footage from like the cameras that the cops carry on their chest. So for me, like, the sad part, like, while I was watching this, is you see her mom, and she's in so much disbelief. Like, she's struggling to believe that anyone could do something so horrible. So then we watch her mom watch the footage with the detective. And I don't know how she did it, because I would have been a mess. I don't think I would have wanted to know what that looks like. But then you start to see how affected her family is. Like, this death affected everyone. Her mom, her daughters, her sister, her brother, like, everyone is super affected. And the part where this story takes a turn is we find out that Judy wasn't seen as the victim because she had illegal substances in her body. So her family could not get any financial assistance. And do you want to know why she was addicted to illegal substances like heroin? It's because she had ovarian cancer. She suffered complications from the surgery and she became addicted to pain medication. So once the insurance company cut her off, she ended up turning to drugs on the street. But she did choose rehab. She chose recovery. She stopped doing heroin. She went to meetings. She was on track. Like, Judy was a very tough girl. But that's when Michael comes into the picture. So there were apparently 38 911 calls. And Michael, the ex, was the one who made most of the calls to use law enforcement to control her. Like, he made himself the concerned boyfriend, and she was just scared that no one would ever believe her. We hear her on the phone telling the cops that she's scared. There was someone who tried and went out of his way to try and help her, but she just was too scared to get out of it. They also went through his criminal record. He had a history of domestic violence.
His theft, domestic violence, menacing, aggravated menacing, making a false police report, domestic violence, aggravated menacing, assault, aggravated menacing, domestic violence, assault, domestic violence, assault, domestic violence, endangering children, domestic violence, endangering children, rape, which was, I think, pled down to a sexual battery.
Menacing, and nothing was done to stop him. And now we're in court. And he decides not to contest the guilty verdict. He decides to do the time because it'll only be 11 years. So they end up not getting Judy's testimony, which benefited him. But this silenced Judy, and she was never able to get her story out. So finally, we are at the point where Judy gets to testify. The DA went out of his way. He went and advocated for her to really get her story, depose her. And she was able to testify about what happened that morning. The part that really, oh my God, that really proved how brave and strong she was she couldn't even be medicated. Like, there's a legal dosage of how much medication she could be on for a trial and to testify. So they had to wean her off a lot of her medication and bring it down for her to testify and be deemed as mentally she's able to testify, and not seem like she was influenced by the drugs. The amount of pain this woman was in, and you see the footage where she's like, oh my God, I can't do it, but I have to. It's so painful, it's so heartbreaking to watch, because and then you find out she testified for 3 hours. 3 hours in agonizing pain. But she toughed it out. She pulled through. She did it. She did it. And the part about her testimony that really got me was when he poured the gasoline on her, she said that some of it got in her mouth and it was burning her, and she was on the floor begging for help. She was like, I was begging for help. It burned. And he then lit her up on fire. You know how evil you have to be? And what this documentary does so well is it highlights who she was, to the point where you don't care who this man is, you don't care what his story is, you don't sympathize with him at all. You want him to pay. You want him to go to prison. You want him to do life, at least, if not a death penalty. Because what he did, this girl's literally begging for help after you just poured gasoline on her. She was already gonna be messed up. She already needed to go to the hospital from ingesting the gasoline. And you're telling me that you just lit her up on fire? And one of the witnesses testified that he believes that the only reason that Michael went and put the fire out, he ended up grabbing an extinguisher and put it out and stopped the fire. The witness believed that the only reason why he did that was because he noticed that there was witnesses. And it's kind of crazy though, because even though for me, the footage was kind of blurry, you do see he's kind of just standing there watching her. And then he goes and he runs and gets the fire extinguisher. He pauses, and Oh my God, like I'm so glad that she was able to get the justice that she deserved. I'm so glad that she was able to testify and say what happened. I'm so glad that the DAs that were on the case were like, yo, we're going before the judge and we're gonna depose her and get her story before this gets to happen. And that man was so sinister, like he was so crazy that he really requested to be in the room with her while she testified. Like, dude, what? He says she can't lie if I'm in the room. The DA was like, and one of the lawyers were like, that's an intimidation tactic. Like, absolutely not. And I'm so glad the judge turned it down, was like, no, you will not be in that room with her. And, you know, she got to testify. She also was able to get a law passed to extend the amount of time someone serves in prison for aggravated arson. So Judy was a badass. You know, she fought for change, she fought for herself, she advocated for herself, and she got justice for herself. And I think this documentary does an amazing job highlighting her story, who she was. That no, she may not have been a perfect victim, but she was a victim and she was human and she deserved to get justice. And that women need to be believed. Like, for there to be 38 phone calls and nothing was done is insane. So I'm really glad that this documentary came out. I'm glad that the director and the team that created this were so sensitive to the story that they really chose her and they chose to highlight her instead of highlighting him. That's what I had to say about this documentary. So if you haven't watched it, take a moment, go on Paramount Plus. That's where I watched it. It takes about an hour and a half. It starts about an hour and a half, maybe an hour 45. But it doesn't even feel like you're sitting there for an hour and a half. Like, it feels like you're so engaged in it and you're just like rooting for her to just heal and come out of this and get justice, that you don't feel like you're just sitting there long. You really don't. They made this documentary very engaging. And the story is so unfortunate and so tragic that there was just so much to learn about this case. So if you have a moment, you want to watch a very good documentary, I do recommend The Fire That Took Her. And, you know, if you watch it, take a moment of silence for Judy and her bravery. Take a moment to really just think about what a lot of women might be going through right now who are victims of domestic violence. And maybe also take a moment to think about how, moving forward, we want to treat those women and believe them. Because that's something that I think this documentary does well. It shows you what the consequences are of not believing them. So thank you for watching this review. If you have any questions, if there's any comments you want to make, if you want to talk about this, please feel free to comment below. Thank you.